Dutchman versus Preacher versus Preacher.
If I look like I don't know how to work buttons on my shirt anymore, it's quite possibly the hottest day of the year in the Netherlands. And we don't have air conditioning. I just have a fan right here. It's my number one fan. Yeah. Preacher. Preacher, preacher, preacher. Garth Ennis. Steve Dillon. Just about the best thing to come along since comics started finding their ways into books. Washington Post. Features more blood and blasphemy than any mainstream comic in memory. Entertainment Weekly. The most intense adult comic in ages. Spin. I don't even know Spin. Garth Ennis' Preacher is one of those things that came out in the 90s and it got huge acclaim, regaling the story of a Jesse Custer, a Texan, by blood and by fucking God in his heart and his fucking testicles as well. Jesse's a preacher, but he's also a man's man. Preacher, if you don't know, is about a man called Jesse Custer. The name is very meaningful, as well as his initials. Jesse has a dark and sordid past. Jesse is a preacher so that he can hope he can deal with his proverbial demons. Unfortunately, he gets chosen by a being called Genesis, which imbues him with the word of God. It boils down to that anything Jesse says is his will of God laying upon you. Nobody who hears it can refuse it. His church, it blows up and he has to go on the run alongside his girlfriend Tulip, ex-girlfriend Tulip, who he just happened to find riding alongside the road, and a mysterious man called Cassidy from Ireland who may or may not have a few secrets of his own. Preacher has 66 comics, which means it ran for years. It had several minis spun off. Cassidy got an origin, Arseface got an origin comics, the Saint of Killers got an origin, and the good old boys, I forgot their name, one of them is Jody. Preacher was a huge success. It's basically, well, I think it put Garth Ennis on the map. Afterwards he went on to do The Punisher for Marvel Comics alongside Steve Dillon yet again. It is critically acclaimed. Bugger me, they're making a TV show, and I know not everything that gets a TV show is a timeless classic. I mean, Mutant X, what was that about? Dark Angel, I think? A lot of these things, best forgotten. Preacher is such a landmark comic that it gets raving reviews all across the board. Why do I dislike it so much? No, you don't get me. I do have the comic. I didn't just buy it to show it in front of the camera here. I got every single last one of those. The premise is brilliant. It's a preacher loses his faith because he gets imbued with the will of God, and he finds out God has left his throne in the heavens. Okay, that's brilliant. Where do you come up with that? Okay, so what do we do with this then? Fine, we get a cult that's supposed to be preparing us for the doomsday, the end of days, the great apocalyptic event. Fine, that's good stuff. You get an angel of death who's a former cowboy, and okay, fair enough, a bit of update, but you know, it could work. What do we do? What do we do with this fantastic concept? we make it flat. So flat. It doesn't even matter that it's about God and a preacher losing his faith and finding out answers that may not be there. No, the book, it just devolves into knob jokes and arse buggery, and incest is hilarious, especially when, you know, done by hillbillies in the South. Fantastic. It's grade A material. I could write a sitcom about that. It's about making fun of people necessitantly, and before anybody says, oh, are you triggered? No. Kindly fuck the fuck off. It's just so banal. It's so juvenile. The leader of this death cult is a man roughly the size of the Kingpin in the comics. So imagine like a 6'6" man weighing as much as a tow truck. But here's the joke. So now imagine Mr. Creosote from Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. That is the joke. He just vomits a lot. So much. Preacher the book, like I said, I love the concept, but it introduces so many villains to us. The villains are all the worst people, and how are we supposed to know this? Well, they are sordid. They have sex with animals. Several of them have sex with animals. Several of them are gay, and yes, I know it's not the fact that they are gay, it's the way their flamboyancy is supposed to represent inside the context of the book itself. The main bad guy, Star, he just goes through a series of unfortunate events where he loses more and more of his body, and I do mean that quite literally. And the first thing that happens to him is that his bald head gets cut open in the middle, and his head looks like a dick. His head looks like a dick. One person is a failed suicide attempt, and his name is Arseface, because it literally looks like a scooter. Mind you, Arseface is probably the only person who's genuinely decent, like proper nice person who doesn't wish any ill will upon anybody else. And he only has to live with an enormous disfigurement. That's all. Incontinence. I can't even continue. It's like every single last one of the people that Jesse encounters on his way to find out answers from God. His quest is to look for God and get answers as to why he is carrying the word. They're all like that. All of them are like that. And it detracts from the story so much. So much bitterness, so much vindictiveness. Like I said, it feels so juvenile. If this is what's supposed to be a landmark in comics, then am I glad I skipped it in the 90s? It feels on par with stuff like from Jackass. And if you like Jackass, that's fine. But those are grown men bashing each other in the testicles. You can like it, but you can't pretend it's anything more than that. Preacher the book, it feels like it's so close to having a legit, great, fantastic concept. So we find out that the word is, in fact, the offspring of an angel and a demoness, or a demon if you prefer. And And God left his throne because this being made him afraid. We find out that God in the Preacher universe is a very petty being. He's all-powerful, but extremely flawed. And I like the concept. Again, he scurries away, he hides. He tries to get Jesse off his back, resurrecting somebody close to him and saying he's a benevolent God, but he does not wish to be tested. So there's a lot of build-up for this all across these 60 issues. Most of it gets dropped in favor of something a lot more low-key. Cassidy, the person that picks up Jesse Custer and his girlfriend Tulip, turns out along the way to be a vampire. Being the only vampire in the book that we see, this is pretty unique. Cassidy is a lowbrow, thuggish, and a bit dim. He's an equal opportunity offender and doesn't give a shit about anybody else but himself. He's an arsehole, grade A, and you can't help but like him, because the audacity he does things with, I do really like Cassidy. The climax of the Preacher books is a fist fight between Jesse Custer and Cassidy. Now, Jesse and Cassidy aren't friends at first, but they do become a bit like brothers forged in fire, if you know what I mean. They get chased down by the same kind of creeps. Cassidy accidentally leads them into the hands of a serial killer. The big death cult thing. Along their way, the big great apocalyptic cult gets a hold of them twice. They have giant bar brawls. They drink until morning, and then Cassidy has to go to bed, and then Preacher just falls over flat. But like I said, Cassidy doesn't give a toss about anybody else but himself. He uses people. He's gotten one of his ex-girlfriends so addicted that Jesse at one point encounters her in the street as a homeless person. Cassidy's long list of people he's grieved at one point starts including Tulip, and the build-up towards the last issues is that Jesse has to fight Cassidy because Cassidy is just such a great big fucking ass. That's it. That's how it ends. A great big fist fight. It's like a Star Trek movie, except the fist fight is not even good. God, on the other hand, we still have the issue with God. Gets dealt with in a different manner. Jesse encounters the new Angel of Death. The new Angel of Death in the Preacher universe is called the Saint of Killers. The Saint of Killers is basically your average Clint Eastwood gunslinger. Supposedly total badass, always scowling. Saint of Killers is often regarded as the most cool character to come out of the Preacher books. I find him a very flat and stereotypical. It's like if you couldn't even give him an ounce of personality. Yes, he lost his wife and child, but lots of fictional characters have lost loved ones. But he got so mad about this that when he got to hell, hell started freezing over. Yeah, because his scowl was just that, scowling. And then the devil tried torturing him, but it didn't work because he was already too mad. So the Angel of Death at that point and Satan forged him new pistols so he could take revenge on the people that killed his wife and kid. Naturally, he kills the Angel of Death and Satan, so he becomes the ultimate answer to everything in the Preacher universe. The Saint of Killers is basically immortal. They don't show anything in the book that can hurt him. aside from maybe a car running into him earlier point, but that just displaces him more than it actually does any damage. And all we see him do is scowl and kill people, and we're supposed to go, yeah, badass. It just doesn't work for me. So the great big conflict with God ends with God trying to weasel his way back into heaven. Because once God sits upon his holy throne, he's immortal, invincible and all-powerful. But because he was distracted by the stupid fist fight between Jesse and Cassidy, he's inadvertently allowed the Saint of Killers to come into heaven, who promptly shoot him. So the entire build-up to the series, which was Preacher without his faith, come to terms with a God who does not care. Answer is simple: just have him killed. Because apparently God owes creation answers, but then we never find out any answers. And it's just such wasted potential. If I recall correctly, Jesse doesn't even ever get to talk. Jesse never even comes face to face with God. And Tulip, poor Tulip. Tulip is basically the girlfriend who doesn't get taken seriously, even though she's a better gunman than anybody else in the book. By virtue of being left behind constantly, Tulip ends up killing the main bad guy. The main bad guy who we've been introduced as at first, like he was supposed to be this utter genius, but none of his plans work, and then his head looks like a dick. Oh, I covered him, didn't I? He doesn't even get a proper climactic situation. It's just, it's over in a second. It's Man of Steel sort level bad. There is build-up, but it's very poor and shoddy. Last but not least, the Steve Dillon art. And I really don't want to be a negative Nancy and just give him all the shit in the world, but I don't like Steve Dillon's art. His faces all look samey. It's like the episode of South Park where the kids are all in this cult, they shave their heads and they all look the same, and all of them are identical except Cartman, who's fat. Very few characters actually look different in most Steve Dillon art. Steve Dillon is everything is very samey. I do like his great big designs for surroundings, like when Preacher is walking around in the desert. That looks great. I love great big vast vistas. They always, give me the feeling that some effort was put into the comic. But everything Steve Dillon draws, it just feels, to me, it just lacks a dynamic energy behind it. See a person connecting their fist with another person's face. There's no weight behind it. There's very little there.
See, this is what I mean. Look, it's just, everything is just so static.
And I feel really bad because I'm pretty sure Steve Dillon's a fantastic guy. I just really don't like his art. So when AMC announced a while ago that they were going to have a new series based around Preacher, and Seth Rogen of all people was going to be the one helping produce it, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Basically set off all alarm bells like, I'm not going to enjoy this, I don't want to see this. But I'd given Arrow a whole season to warm up to me. By the by, I really don't like Arrow, so that out of the way. But the Preacher show starring Jackie Earle Haley, Dominic Cooper, Joe Gilgun, Ruth Negga, that has gotten me hooked on the first episode. I find that really weird. It's supposed to be the source material that I've got so much issues with, but then it's done in such a different way that I'm actually endearing myself to these characters. From the get-go, the show is tackling things a lot more different. Genesis, the Word of God, is still in Jesse Custer, but instead of being forced to wander the lands of America because his covenant blew up, he's still in the town and he's trying to figure out what he has to do with this newfound night omnipotence-inducing powers. There as well is the bad guy, Odin Quincannon, and by the way, everybody has such weird names, but never you mind. Odin Quincannon is a short man with a Napoleon complex. He owns a company that deals in meat, and that's about it. In this show, he's shown to have lost his family, and he's failing to live up to his father in turn failing to live up to his grandfather, because revenue has been going down drastically. So Quincannon is not feeling as powerful as he thinks a man like he should be. When he lost his family, he also lost his touch with God. Being a man apparently from Texas, this is probably a big deal. I do take it that the south of the United States of America is predominantly more religious than anywhere else. So Odin is desperately trying to get the deed or the land around the church of Jesse Custer, part in wanting to expand his company, part in because probably to spit in the face of a God who believes is not there, because all we are is meat in his eyes. Now, in stark contrast with his comic book counterpart, in his comic books, Odin Quincannon is a short man with a Napoleon complex, who's basically just a fucking arsehole for the sake of his own company and him being a fucking arsehole. Odin is so rich and powerful that he doesn't care that his employees are all arseholes and bastards, because he just hires them in. They go out to small towns in the southern states and they mess things up for the proper good honest Americans, like the good old boys. So Jesse has to, put a stop to him, because he's a sheriff now. Okay, so he's a sheriff now. Yes. Odin, in the comics, is so racist, so tactless, so incredibly stupidly a bastard that the KKK doesn't want him. He is so desperate to be this huge power that he doesn't understand anything. He just fucks things up. He actually tries to get a KKK rally going, and he fails at that. His lawyer is a Nazi dominatrix. Yes. No, not a neo-Nazi dominatrix, like a Nazi dominatrix. His lawyer is a Nazi dominatrix who tries to have sex with Jesse Custer because he's the biggest example of a true manly man she could find, and their children will probably be very Aryan according to the ideas of Adolf Hitler. Odin Quincannon gets into trouble with Jesse Custer, so Jesse Custer chases him down, and then I forgot how they got there. On some railroad tracks, Odin gets struck by lightning. Yes, that's it. That's how Odin meets his end. He gets struck by lightning. So the big bad guy for I don't even know how many issues that were, 7 to 8, gets struck by lightning. Jesse Custer realises Odin is still alive and he's crawling back to his meat plant. So a couple of issues beforehand we got a little foreshadowing that Odin has a special room that he doesn't allow anybody else to enter, and strange noises are coming from there. So now Jesse is chasing him down, and he enters this room and we finally see what's there. It's a giant meat puppet. Odin Quincannon has made a meat puppet sitting down. So when he was standing upright, Odin isn't a very tall man. Let's say he's 5 foot. When he was standing up, he would come to the abdomen of this meat puppet sitting down, and he would make love to it. This is exactly the level of juvenility I mean that the comic book is plagued with. Odin Quincannon in the series is already 20,000 times the character he was in the comic books. Being played by Jackie Earle Haley on top of that is great. I don't know how the series is going to tackle anything else. Cassidy doesn't seem to be as evil so far, though he does get chased down by vampire hunters. Tulip is more criminal than she was in the comic books, but she seems to be more proactive in the series, so there's hoping that she's less by the sidelines and more, part of the actual stories. I just hope that the show continues to, in my opinion, enhance the existing characters and plots that they are in a way that people don't cringe. Like, let's hope Odin Quincannon's brother never shows up, Conan Quincannon, who has an excrement factory. Basically, he works in shit. I don't have the books just because I hate myself, even though I have a tremendous amount of self-loathing. My daddy never loved me.
Hello, you. Unfortunately, due to spending too much time recording footage for a list, other footage I'd shot for this video had gotten corrupted, and I only managed to find out by the time I'd edited all the video together, and then finally came towards the conclusion. So, this is the TLDR. I really like the new show so far. I don't like the book that much. It has good ideas, but, executes them poorly. So anyway, I've got several social medias. I've got a Twitter account. I've got Tumblr, which I barely ever use, just to look at porn. And I have a Facebook page which I use to, just post random music I like and shitty jokes and pictures and things like that. All of them are Dutch Sticker, the YouTube account you're looking at right now. So without further ado, here's a short list of all the stuff in Garth Ennis's Preacher, which really, really, really bothers me.
Cycloptic incestuous hillbillies. Another hillbilly whose entire joke is that he fucks everything from half-dead fish to poultry to birthday cakes. A Frenchman who only exists to be called Napoleon Vichy, whose entire raison d'etre is to eat horses, so obviously he's in Texas eating people's horses. A man called Jesus Dessard. You can just go ahead and assume everything you know by the surname. Children of Jesus Christ keeping their bloodline pure by only having sex with their brothers and sisters, resulting in an enormously mentally challenged 16-year-old who can only talk in doop-de-doo. I wish I was joking.
Shutdown initiated.